Today on Let's Talk Bitcoin, we're joined by Michael Yeung, founder and president of the Simon Fraser Bitcoin Club of Canada. Mike, how are you?
Good, excellent.
That's good. You contacted me last month saying that you were the only Bitcoin club operating on a college in Canada. And so I kind of wanted to get you on and talk to you about what the journey has been to this point. Because again, we started talking, I think, about this before the price increased 10x that it has in the last couple of months. I'm very curious what things are like on college campuses and really what's changed in the last 6 months that you've been doing this.
From my perspective, in my experience, I think Bitcoin penetration on college campuses has actually been quite low. Surprisingly, on most of the campuses that I visited here, including my own school, most people haven't heard of Bitcoin. Anywhere from professors down to the students, most people haven't really heard about it. So that for me has been a bit of a surprise. You expect that young people, especially people who are in school, would know something about Bitcoin, being that it's so cool, so innovative, and so high tech.
So why do you think that is, and what do you think was different about it that made it so this was something that you recognized maybe a little bit earlier than your peers did?
When I first got into it in spring of 2011, even less people heard of Bitcoin back then. It was mostly people who are programmers who are in certain circles who know about it. The reason why I think in some ways it is still like that, it's because of the learning curve that comes with Bitcoin. I'm sure as you understand, to really understand how Bitcoin functions and why it's so important, you have to understand topics such as macroeconomics, how money is created, inflation, deflation. So for a really young person that's in college, that might not be something that they would understand right away. And secondly, the utility of Bitcoin hasn't been fully realized. So if you're just a kid going to school, living in a dorm, at this point, there really isn't any reason for you to learn about Bitcoin unless you're looking to go into mining or making a lot of money through investing. But I foresee that in the near future, this will change.
The club that you run, do you currently run this club or did you start this club? You said that the school that you used to attend, are you still in school now?
Yeah, I'm in school here at Simon Fraser University for business administration. Prior to coming to the school in the fall of 2011, I got to know Bitcoin quite well in the summer. I started out as a minor, and even back then, I always had the thought of starting a school club, that would bring all sorts of Bitcoin enthusiasts together and just to really research the topic and to network and to create projects on top of Bitcoin. I didn't actually take much actions towards that until beginning of 2013. And surprisingly, around that time, the only club that ever came into existence for Bitcoin was Stanford's Bitcoin group. So yeah, it was a good opportunity for me to just start a club here and to learn as I go. And yeah, it's really rewarding.
I'm not familiar with Simon Fraser University. How large of a school is that? And I mean, do you consider the club that you've started to be a success? What types of events do you do? And give me an idea of what you're actually doing. So
far, we've done 2 major events to spread word about Bitcoin, to teach people what it is on a really simple layman term. Our first event was back in September, and that was pretty good. We had a turnout of about 40 to 50 people. And most of them, surprisingly, weren't even from the school. They weren't students. Most of them were business people and entrepreneurs from outside of school. And our second event was hosted at the end of November last year. And that was a really big success. We had at least 120 people in attendance. It was a packed event. And we had 3 presentations. One of them was on how Bitcoin works on a very basic level, how it relates to politics. Second one was a wallet tutorial, how to start up your own blockchain.info wallet and how to secure it. And our final presentation was on Bitcoin and crowdfunding, how it's going to change crowdfunding for the next generation. And it was really good. We had a lot of people come in that didn't have any knowledge of Bitcoin at all, didn't know how Bitcoin works, and of course never held any Bitcoin. By the time everyone left, almost everybody had some Bitcoin on them. And the biggest success that came out of this was we worked with a federally registered charity called School Building School that helps build schools in Uganda. And we were able to host the world's first in-person Bitcoin fundraiser at the end of this event. And we raised over 1,500 Canadian dollars in under 9 minutes using QR codes. So that was really cool.
That sounds really cool. So for people, you mentioned that there aren't very many of these clubs out there. One of the big things that I've been hearing people talk about is wanting to really explain the cryptocurrency movement to people who are actually in colleges, because you're right. Generally, they are quite forward-looking, and looking for next trends and technology and things like that. But because of the fact that this is money, and we don't really teach about money in a way that's useful to understanding Bitcoin, we don't really, learn about it in other areas of life because it's just less convenient to do that. People don't really have the context. So really, that's what it seems like the problem is at colleges, right? It's just that people don't have a good enough reason to actually want to care.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So that's why I mentioned that if in the near future some kind of service that's really trendy, very useful for young people come along and really integrate Bitcoin into its core, if something like that comes about, then you can expect Bitcoin to take off really quickly. It doesn't have to be anything that crazy. For example, if tomorrow eBay start taking Bitcoin, Amazon start taking Bitcoin, then Bitcoin would be a very casual and normal thing to talk about on campus. But we haven't really got there yet.
So if somebody is interested in kind of replicating what you've done, what were kind of some of the things that jumped out at you as being harder than you thought, or you needed to go about it a different way than you would have assumed until you actually did it? Are there anything like gotchas that people can watch out for or that they should make sure to do?
There's about 3 things that I would give to any other inspiring student who wants to start a club or a Bitcoin group at a university level or college level. That's first of all to really know the in and out of your school's administration, to network and to find out what exactly you need to do in order to gain official recognition from the school as a school club. And secondly, just go out there. If you have an active Bitcoin community within your city, go out there and network with those people. Just don't be shy about it and really push yourself forward and really build those connections. And finally, really do something that provides value to your audience. So that can range from hosting events to hosting workshops, hosting seminars, to having a great Facebook page that provides a lot of fresh, relevant content for people, and to really engage your audience. Just to have a club on its own isn't really that much of a big deal, in my opinion, but it's what you provide the audience that matters in the end. That's what keeps them coming back. And I would say if there's a 4th point is to just don't have too much expectations. If you're expecting college professors on campus to understand Bitcoin and be warm to it right away, it's not going to happen, but it will happen over time. As it has in my experience.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that for a second. I was going to ask, on the one hand, again, it seems like colleges should be really forward-looking because they're, focused on what's coming and, teaching people fundamentals and stuff like that. But at the same time, with money, the question is sometimes different. What has the response been like from the faculty or from people who you've engaged with at the bureaucratic level of your school?
It ranges from one extreme to the other. So we have people who are very high up in our school who don't know much about Bitcoin at all and don't seem to really care. And then you have all these other people who just wouldn't stop talking to me about it. So, I have professors who try to ask me how to acquire some Bitcoin and bought some Bitcoins from me. And we have other professors who are in computer science who should be interested but are not interested. So it's really a good personality test. If you expose somebody to Bitcoin, regardless of who they are and what their profession are, once you expose Bitcoin to them, you can kind of tell what kind of person they are by how they react to it. So kind of all over the place in terms of how people react. Like I said, some people are very, very warm. They're all really, really curious. They just want to learn more and more, right? And there's other people who just don't want to learn anything about it. They just seem to think of it as a fad, as a trend that's going to fade away in some time. I would just like people to know that in Vancouver right now, we're pretty much shaping up to be the next Berlin of Bitcoin. So we have quite a few merchants here locally that accept Bitcoin as of today. If you go to the Bitcoin Co-op website, which is bitcoincoop.org, bitcoincoop.org, and you click on the merchants page, you can see that we have more than 20 different businesses locally, like brick and mortar stores that accept Bitcoin. So anything from cafes to moving company to landscaping to restaurants, you'll find it here in Vancouver. So I think that's something really cool that a lot of people might not know unless they came to Vancouver. And actually one of the members of the co-op, I'm actually part of the co-op as well, but one of the fellow members of the co-op is actually going to get a Bitcoin tattoo And for this, the tattoo parlor has agreed to accept Bitcoin. So that's pretty good dedication from them.
Okay, so let's actually follow up on this a second. So you're saying that Vancouver is similar to Berlin, and I think what you mean is the Kreuzberg district of Berlin, where there's like a street where there's a whole bunch of different... Okay, so this is one of those things that people have varying opinions on, whether or not in-person adoption matters, and whether or not you need kind of like a critical mass of people in order to make it make sense to do that. So it's kind of a chicken-egg problem. So I'm interested... Yeah. What do you think is happening here? What you've watched this happen, go from no stores in Vancouver to 20 stores in Vancouver. What's that progress been like?
I think initially the people who sign up to take Bitcoin, I wouldn't say initially, even right now, a lot of the stores that are signing up to take Bitcoin are doing it in order to gain free publicity, which is quite effective still. Eventually, this will no longer matter. If like half the store around your block already takes Bitcoin, then it doesn't really matter for you to take it anymore. It's not going to get you any more free press. But there are a lot of people who are operating these businesses that really stand firm in the principle of cryptocurrency and that it is a currency that has no government involvement.
Do you know people who are patronizing these businesses more because they accept Bitcoin than they didn't?
Oh, yes, definitely. There's quite a few restaurants that are getting a lot more businesses than they used to because they've taken Bitcoin. And because of the fact that the club and the Bitcoin co-op, we both co-host a lot of events at these venues for taking Bitcoin. So we co-host a lot of meetups. These meetups, they bring in massive amount of clients on a weekend when usually there's no people coming in at all. So
this is like your version of the BitMob thing that we've seen in other parts of the country. Where okay, great. Where you basically just like mob a retailer with a whole bunch of people who want to accept Bitcoin all at once. So it is worth them setting it up because hey, they got all this business that they might. Okay, cool, great.
As you know, on top of Vancouver having the world's first ATM, we're actually going to have a few Lamasu machines by the end of this month as well. There's been quite a bit of demand in Vancouver for more RoboCoins, but unfortunately, the RoboCoins are a little hard to get. We are working towards getting more Lamasu, so we should have them here in town by the end of the month. So you can definitely say that there is quite a bit of a Bitcoin fever here locally in Vancouver.
Are you involved in any of the ATM projects at all, or is this just other stuff that's happening in Vancouver?
I'm not involved intimately, but I am involved like by satellite because I also help convince different merchants down here in Vancouver to accept Bitcoin and also to not only take Bitcoin, but to also maybe set up ATMs. So yeah, I'm involved in just convincing merchants to look into Bitcoin as a retailer and to also provide some way for people to buy Bitcoins.
Well, Mike, we're out of time for today, but I think we're definitely going to have you back in a couple of months to talk about how things have changed, frankly, in Vancouver, and what this situation's been like. Because it really seems like you're in the middle of it in an area where there's a lot of activity going on.
Yeah, we're hosting the Bitcoin Co-op and the Simon Fraser Bitcoin Club. We're hosting a huge event in the middle of next month, mid-February, called CoinFest. Like Coin Festival, CoinFest. Mm-hmm. This will be a cross-country event where different cities in Canada, including Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, and so on and so forth, will be hosting, co-hosting events throughout different venues that accept Bitcoin to celebrate Bitcoin. So at the end of this event, the club will be hosting the first CoinFest keynote event, which will feature a few prominent people in the Bitcoin community. And this will be a whole day event, and we expect no less than 500 people in attendance. Yeah, I was talking to somebody from the co-op about this. They might even invite yourself to come to Vancouver and check it out. Yeah, and if you want to mention this, you can mention to your audience that I was in Brazil for over 2 weeks. I actually came back on this Monday. And surprisingly, Bitcoin penetration in Brazil has been quite low. In Rio de Janeiro, it's been quite low. But I've somehow managed to be in touch with quite a few important people. It wouldn't be that much of a stretch to see Bitcoin being taken for buying, selling goods and services, and also to be taken for donations in the favelas very soon. Yeah, it'll be an interesting time.
Yeah, sounds like it'll definitely be an interesting time. So, just to wrap this up, I'm asking people more and more, what is your broad opinion of altcoins, and are there any in particular that you actually want to talk about?
I think altcoin has a legitimate space. It is quite an interesting idea. And for some of the altcoins really don't have any value, like Doggy Coin, for example. It is a very funny concept, but it's more of a meme, if anything. But certain other altcoins, like Litecoin, for example, the number 2 cryptocurrency right now, I think Litecoin has very beneficial value in that the confirmations are faster. So as some of the other coins like Namecoin, for example, which I believe it to be a DNS cryptocurrency, that has value as well. But most of the alternative currency that exists out there don't really have a need to exist, other than the fact that the creators of these alternative currency are out there to gain a profit. So I don't mind it. I think the market will just eventually sift out all the non-relevant players. Whatever the case is, alternative currency, whatever buzz that they create, can only benefit Bitcoin in the end, because it creates a lot of attention in the press.
If somebody wants to get in touch with you or wants to stay up to date with what's going on with your club, is there a website or somewhere they can visit you?
Yeah, they can just go to www.sfu.ca/Bitcoin, and they can just email us directly at bitcoin@sfu.ca.
Mike Yeung, president and founder of the Simon Fraser Bitcoin Club. Thank you very much for your time.
Shop smart with your Bitcoin and get 3% back with Gift. On Gift, you can get gift cards with Bitcoin. Choose from over 200 retailers, including Target, GameStop, Gap, and more. Gift makes it easy to shop on Android or on the web. There are no additional fees, and when you shop with Bitcoin, you get 3% back. Go ahead, try Gift. That's GYFT.com.